Hello guys! If I had to summarize this week in just two most important messages, this would be: number one, it may seem that dictatorships are invincible, strong, well protected, but they always collapse really quickly and quite unpredictably, just as we witnessed that in Syria. Bashar Assad begged for Putin's support, but Putin does not have any money or powers left to back up his body. And that is why right now we don't know whether Bashar Assad is in hell after an air crash or he is in hell in Moscow. Also, whenever Russia has lots of problems, it starts investing more in the spread of narratives, trying to threaten the world and to stop it from the total defeat of Russia. And that is exactly why we saw so many speeches of Lavrov on OSCE meeting or his interview with Tucker Carlson. Don't trust what you see, don't trust what you hear, just analyze how quickly Russian influence disappears in Syria, in Georgia, in Romania, in Moldova, and of course on the front lines in Ukraine. And I'm really happy that on important international events like the reopening of the Notre-Dame de Paris after an extremely beautiful and important reconstruction, President Zelensky was together with the global leaders and had an opportunity to communicate with President Macron and Donald Trump. So let's discuss what all of these very important big events in just 1 week mean for the future of Ukraine and the world, and all from the ordinary Ukrainian perspective. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the collapse of the Putin's regime, just as it happened to Assad, subscribe. And also on the channel, I'm always happy to share my Ukrainian experience, how to fight against Russian war, against Russian narratives. We all need that. So let's start with this totally unpredictable and extremely fast collapse of the Assad regimes that lasted more a decade, and to the great extent it was fully supported by Russia and Iran. And when these sponsors ran out of powers, had their problems on their own fronts, Assad's regime fell in like 11 days. The rebels took city after city, and Assad gave it a try, visited Moscow, begged Putin for support, and perhaps received a denial, and also illustrated for other authoritarian regimes that feed from Putin, are very dependent on Moscow, that you cannot trust Russia. And this rule applies not only for Ukraine or other democratic countries, but also for authoritarian regimes, because dictators, they treat each other with the speed of light, and that's exactly what we saw. Well, we also realized that Putin did not manage to back up Assad because he did not have money, soldiers, or a possibility to do so. And together with the loss of control over Syria, Putin lost access to military bases, an important naval military base in the Mediterranean, an Avia base, and of course he was humiliated. And I think that now the president of Turkey will illustrate his attitude to Putin even more vividly. And in general, this week turned out to be very bad for Putin and his global geopolitical image, because we see that protests against fake elections and pro-Russian government in Georgia grow only stronger. And many people resign from their positions in police, on propaganda TV stations, because they see the strength of people's desire to protect the European choice, to protect freedom, and then don't want to fight with their own people. And that is exactly what happened on Maidan during the Revolution of Dignity. It is also the week when the Constitutional Court of Romania annulled fake elections where Russia invested a great amount of money and skills in the support of anti-NATO, anti-Ukrainian, anti-European candidate, with the support of fake thousands of TikTok accounts. And there are lots of such things happening as the domino effect. And it is once again a proof that the situation in Russia is much worse than they try to pretend. Subscribe to see the further development of events, as we perhaps will witness the defederation of Russia sometime soon. And please don't be afraid of the future collapse of Russia, because this is a very natural process. And I will connect a video that we have on the channel that describes it really well. So whenever Russia has problems, they try to invest in more Russian propaganda. Unfortunately, there are lots of people on Twitter, on YouTube, who help disseminate these fakes. And this week, Lavrov gave a number of performances, one interview to Tucker Carlson. I don't know, do you consider them to be effective? Please let me know in the comments below, because personally, I, of course, see the level of Russian lies, but that is nothing new for me. But I don't see that they give any impressive phrases or they persuade people, because literally you can compare two interviews of Lavrov in just 1 week, one given for an internal audience, another one targeted on the US and global audience, and he contradicts himself. But of course they say Oreshnik, Oreshnik and Oreshnik. That is the only argument they have left. But honestly, this is an old, just a little bit updated intercontinental missile that did not frighten anyone. And also, after the information about the call of General Gerasimov to General Brown in the United States was revealed, it even became obvious that they used Oreshnik not as a reaction to Ukraine getting permission to use long-range strikes, but as a part of their drills or whatnot. But let's come back to more positive things, and that is definitely the reopening of Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris. I've been there once, and I remember how fantastic it was. And one of the thoughts that I had on my mind was this feeling of beauty, and how many important historical figures were inside, how many of them were crowned there. And I cannot even imagine how beautiful the atmosphere was during the reopening, and I'm very grateful to President Macron that President Zelensky was invited, that he was honored, and you could hear people giving him standing ovation. And there were lots of yellow and blue flags all around the cathedral, and I thought it was quite symbolic. From what we understand, President Macron, who is a great support of Ukraine, and I think he perhaps is now one of the strongest leaders in the European Union. He did everything to organize a meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. And they spent like 35 minutes talking, and after the conversation we could see Trump approaching to Zelensky, shaking his hand, perhaps impressed by the ovations and attitudes of people in the cathedral towards the Ukrainian president. And I know that everything cannot be perfect, and I will later comment on some words of Trump that I don't like as a Ukrainian, but in general this is very important, that they have an opportunity to meet and talk, and that everyone can hear the Ukrainian perspective, the EU perspective from President Macron, and Donald Trump can actually shape his opinion and have more thoughts after such meetings. I think it's important. And I don't think that Russia is working on that, because they traditionally undermine anyone but their Kremlin goblin. And this month was tremendous for Russian losses. In November, they have broken their own records, 46,000 people in just 1 month. And Trump spoke about that. He actually said about the unnecessary losses on the two sides in this war. And here is where I want to contradict as a Ukrainian, because of course, thousands, hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers killed on the front lines in Ukraine are unnecessary victims, and they are not totally victims because they signed the contracts and chose to join this criminal war. But of course, these are losses, and all people who defend their motherland, they are not losses. They are not unnecessary. We don't have a choice. We stand for our territories, we stand for our children, we stand for our houses, for our lives. And it's actually because of these people, all of the Ukraine does not look like Mariupol or Bucha after months of, just 1 month actually, of Russian occupation. And I do understand that Trump has this very emotional way of speaking, and that in future, when he's already in the White House, there will be people who will help to interpret these messages. But it's not okay to equate Ukraine and Russia and what people do on the two sides of the front line, because one of them are defenders, and this is a very honorary title, and others are criminals, looters, rapists, and invaders. It is a very clear line between who is a victim and who is an aggressor. So please help spread these messages and persuade people that even in our desire to achieve peace, we have to remember about the justice. And I'm happy that President Zelensky speaks about that, and it seems like Macron and many other world leaders also see it that way. And while people prepare for the negotiations, Assad escapes Syria, Ukrainians continue to demilitarize Russia, because honestly that's the best way to defeat them and to bring lasting peace for Ukraine, Georgia, Romania, Moldova, Baltics, Poland, and many other countries in the world. And also to defeat not just Russia, but North Korea, Iran, China, because I'm sure you clearly understand they fight against us united. And actually, if people in the United States doubt whether they should support Ukraine, they can think about the enemies we have. Somehow your enemies are very same as ours. And this week we've targeted an air base in Ryazan, a port Novorossiysk, to which lots of Russian Black Sea Fleet escape. And this is another proof that we can actually defeat Russia, because have a look at what we did to their Black Sea Fleet. And right now we don't need grain deal, we don't need any appeasements, we simply operate in our own waters because we have good marine drones, we had strategy, and no one stopped us from doing the job. So I believe it's vital to liberate Crimea, to destroy Kerch Bridge, and to defeat Russia. After that, everything will return more or less to normal in Ukraine, and not just in Ukraine, globally. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Join me on Instagram, X, Threads, Discord, and Blue Sky. You will find the links to my social media pages in the description of this video, same as the link to our merch shop, where we have lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine and Christmas presents. Also, do watch new video of Jake Bro that I will connect here, where he speaks about NATO expansion and how actually NATO expansion is the reaction to Russian aggressive policy, but not the country. And I think that's the most important video on YouTube. And no one could say better. Like, with all my Ukrainian experience, I agree like 1000% with Jake and what he says in this video. It actually debunks lots of evil Russian narratives that are totally fake, totally fake. Thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!